Troops of Operation Udoka have killed 6 suspected members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra in Abia State. In a statement on Sunday, the Nigerian army said the suspected separatists were killed during a raid on their camps at a forest in Arochukwu local government area. The army said troops recovered weapons, including 3 locally fabricated rocket-propelled grenade launchers, 2 locally made artillery guns with tripods and bombs, guns, Biafran flags, Toyota Tundra and Hilux vehicles. While the Nigerian army said the clearance and raid operation was conducted to apprehend the killers of 5 soldiers in Aba last month. According to an army statement, during the intelligence-led operation, troops encountered improvised explosive devices along its axis of advance, and 1 soldier sustained minor injuries from the fragments. 5 suspected armed bandits have been reportedly killed by troops and special forces of Operation Whirl Punch in Kaduna State. According to Kaduna State's overseeing Commissioner of Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, the operation was conducted in the Kachia-Kaju axis, where troops also recovered weapons and other items, while the air component also struck bandit camps in Igabi local government area of the state. Governor Obasani praised the troops and Air Force for their efforts and urged them to maintain their operational momentum. 2 ex-convicts are among 4 suspected kidnappers arrested by the operatives of the Federal Capital Territory Police Command during a raid of forests in states bordering the capital. Well, the operation was in synergy with the Special Forces of Guards Brigade, DSS and Hunters, while the security agencies had stormed some identified kidnappers' camps at Gidan Dogo and Kweti Forest, Kaduna State, and arrested 4 suspects whose names were withheld, but their ages put at between 20 and 35 years. The police say the operation forced the bandits to flee their hideouts, abandoning several kidnapped victims in their den. The hideouts have been dismantled and weapons, including 2 assault rifles, recovered. And the parish priest of St. Thomas Catholic Church, Zaman Dabo community in Zango Kataf local government area of Kaduna State, Reverend Father Gabriel Uke, has been kidnapped by bandits. He was abducted by the bandits in the early hours of Sunday. A statement by the Vicar General of the Kafanchan Catholic Diocese, Reverend Father Emmanuel Kaza, confirmed the abduction and solicited prayers for the immediate and safe release of the abducted priest. While the cleric says the church will continue to work with security operatives for the quick release of the kidnapped reverend. Now, Stephen Okwori, security analyst, is here to look at the new surge of insecurity in the country and how to address this seemingly growing challenge. Thank you so much for joining us on News Night. I would like actually to start on a brighter note, because based on the first story, you actually find a situation where locally fabricated rocket-propelled grenade launchers, 2 locally made artillery guns with tripods and bombs, and so on, which means there is that local capacity to actually produce, some of these weapons, which means we can begin to reduce our reliance on foreign weaponry to fight terrorism. If you were to, just look at it from that angle before we get into the main issue here.
Yeah.
Is that even something to cheer about in any way?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
To produce this thing locally or manufacture them locally, we have seen where companies like that, illegal companies in Plateau, if you recall, we saw where the troops stumbled on a local manufacturing factory like that where they manufacture such arms and ammunition. You see, it's disheartening that we find such things in our country, manufacturing these things illegally and supplying or selling them to non-state actors to carry out heinous attacks on the civilian populace and the nation at large. So I think that it's something that the security agencies and the governments need to look into, because this is not supposed to be happening within our territorial country,
Yes.
Yeah, because it is, I don't see it as a way that we should begin to see how to harness or to look at the advantages of what that manufacturing factory is doing. I think they really need to look at it and arrest people or the corporates that are involving themselves in that act.
And it does seem that troops are making some inroads, because the first three stories actually have to do with, some of the arrests and attacks and pushback of terrorists.
Yes.
What are we doing right? Because it looks like there's some synergy, if you like, and intel. Because this report actually says it was based on intel. In the case of IPOB, in Aba pushing back those in the forest there.
I think the troops and the other law enforcement agencies, they are doing their best, but the efforts that we are seeing, I think they need to see how to step it up, because when we begin to compare the damage that these criminal elements are inflicting on the nation and the Nigerian populace, it can't be compared to what we see the effort that they are doing.
So it's like just a drop in the ocean?
Exactly. Okay. Because we have seen situations where in the last couple of days, about 40 or more persons were killed in Zamfara, in Katsina, and all that. And you hear that just 5 bandits are killed. Right. So when you begin to look at it comparatively, it's not in any way equate to what we are saying. So in the last 1 year, we saw the report of the armed forces, what they did in the last 1 year. We saw that they killed about 9,300 bandits, terrorists, and other criminal elements. About 7,000 were arrested. Arms that were recovered, about 4,882. Other ammunition, about 83,900. So we see the effort they are doing. The police also, we see the effort they are doing. Kidnappers, suspects, about 3,068 were also arrested. And other criminals that involve themselves in armed robbery and other things that they are doing. But when you look at that, you begin to imagine how many is this number that is terrorizing the country, when 9,300 is killed in a year. So it goes to show that as the government and the security agencies are making efforts, the sponsors or whoever that are involved in this are also recruiting other vulnerable Nigerians into their gang. So the more they kill, the more they recruit. Right. Because we can't have a situation where that kind of number is killed and that 7,000 is arrested. That's almost 20,000.
And you still see terrorism on the rise.
On the rise. So
it doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up at all. So I think we need more effort. And you see, despite
what more efforts in terms of practical efforts that need to be put in place? What exactly needs to be in place to close the gap?
Okay. Now, I want to answer this question in looking at it from 4 dimensions. Now, we have to look at the political angle, the legislative angle, the judiciary angle, and also the technical angle before we begin to talk about the civilian populace, the role they need to play in it. The political angle, we must see that political will, that commitment in the fight against insecurity.
You think it's absent? It's lacking?
It's lacking. It's lacking because we need to see that total commitment. What are the technical angle? Are they being provided the logistics? Are they being provided the funds? Because I've seen where the chairman, Police Service Commission, complained of lack of funds to carry out recruitment exercise. So that will we must have to see from the political side. Now, from the judiciary, there's this slow pace, of how criminals are being tried in our court. What is it? Why is it happening that way? We need to see quick dispensation.
And now when you arrest about 7,000, how do you even dispense or dispose of those cases as quickly as possible to ensure that justice is done? Now,
I expect that there should be a special court, to quickly dispense such a matter so that it will serve as deterrent to people that have intention to go into crime. Now the other angle, where I mentioned the legislative angle to it, is that we must see that they appropriate the funds, and not just appropriating these funds. We must see that they carry out oversight functions to see that the funds that they appropriate is judiciously used at the reason why they appropriate these funds. Are they truly oversighting these agencies of government that are saddled with the responsibilities of providing security. That's another angle to it. Now, the technical side, we must see that the military, the police, and the other law enforcement agencies really do what they need to do.
Yeah.
The people that they deploy or post to certain positions, do they have the capacity? How are they posting them? Are they doing it based on favor, or they are doing it based on the note that comes from a government, top government functionary?
Yeah.
You know, so these are the things we need to see, that all these critical stakeholders that are involved in the fight against insecurity do what they need to do, and they must do it rightly.
What about the perception, general
Yeah.
perception, that this has become an industry in Nigeria?
It is.
How more complicated does it make it if it's truly become an industry? Terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and what have you.
Yes, it is an industry. We have seen statements or comments from political leaders. Recently, the Katsina State Governor talked about how criminals make hell of money out of what we are seeing here. In the last couple of years, we have seen where over 1 billion naira was reported to have been taken away from citizens of this country as a result of ransom payment. You know, of course, you know that is a key source. Ransom they get from these criminal acts is a key source of income for them to finance their acts of criminality. You know, these arms and ammunition that you see, they are not cheap. They're not cheap. So they procure them with monies that they obtain from innocent Nigerians that go about their lawful businesses.
Yeah.
So it has become a venture, very lucrative. And one disappointing thing is that the national security strategy, they reviewed 2019 strategy, talked about kidnapping. They identified that kidnapping is a preeminent threat, you know, that is confronting Nigeria today. Now they talked about the economic payoff. They also talked about activating early response in the event where Nigerians are caught in that web. But how effective is that mechanism? How effective is that working?
So how can it be made more effective?
Now, the people that are saddled with the responsibilities, you know, we must see that they are up to the task. That's the point I made where we talked about if they are professionally deployed or posted to positions that demand in these agencies of government that we're talking about here. You know, so we must see that they are up to the task by performing what their duties and doing it rightly. Punishment and reward, if they fail in their responsibilities, are they being punished for it? If they do well, are they being rewarded? These are key things that the government needs to look into.
Let's zero in very quickly before I let you go on the Operation Udoka in Abia State, in response, of course, to the unfortunate killings of 5 soldiers among 11 people in Abia State. What do you make of the seeming progress made by Operation Udoka? At least 6 bandits, suspected bandits, killed. What do you think of that operation?
Yeah, it's a good one, but I think that there's a more to it. And for us to record success in the fight against whatever IPOB insurgents are doing, you know, I am an advocate of a local policing system, you know. The community is a rural community where they hibernate to carry out these acts of criminality. Now, for them to succeed in going beyond what they are doing, I think there's need for some local organizations to be involved. Now, you talked about the hideout that the police here in the FCT raided. You know, you mentioned hunters. You know, there's this Nigerian Hunters and Forest Security Service. You know, they built to establish that organization, that local organization. Was sponsored by the current vice president while he was a senator. Something prompted him to sponsor such a bill, right? He must have seen the importance of involving or engaging these local hunters, you know, to curb insecurity. Now he's vice president. What's happening to the bill? You know, now we talked about local vigilante group. The current speaker, you know, sponsored the bill when he was an honorary member. He must have seen the importance of having these local structures, you know, because this crime is local. We have these attacks in our very rural local communities.
What about forest guards?
It's also a way to go, you know. We're talking about synergy here. When you begin to suggest that we need these people to be on board to see how to curb insecurity, Nigerians begin to say, no, we have police and all that, we have the military, but we need to have presence of security in our local communities. Now, if there was a synergy between the local Nigerian hunters and forest and perhaps vigilante group in that Abia incident. Now, when they went to raid, perhaps they would have gone further, you know, because these people live in this community and they know the terrain, they know the topography, they are used to the mountains and the forest, you know. So it's not just establishing them, they must be seen to be armed. Right. We must have armed local policing system where these issues that are happening in our hinterlands must be curbed. Well, with the help of conventional security
that's
agents.
A whole other line of argument, because some would say that it could raise, you know, other levels of challenges, security challenges, but we'll have to leave it there. Stephen Okwori, brilliant intervention there by you. He's a security analyst joining us on Newsnight.